Karim El Ainaoui, Executive President, Policy Center for the New South, Morocco. Manjeet Kriplani, Executive Director, Gateway House, India. Paolo Magri, Managing Director and President of the Advisory Board, Italian Institute for International Political Studies, Italy. And our moderator, Ken Jimbo, Head Institute of Geoeconomics, Japan. Over to you, Ken.
Right. Very good morning. And I'm your moderator, Ken Jimbo, Managing Director of the International House of Japan based in Tokyo, where I run a think tank on geopolitics and geoeconomics. Very pleased to be the moderator for this morning. And welcome to our session entitled Pole Vaults, the Revanchist West and Rising South. And we're going to explore what this really means. And we are now on the day 3 of the Raisina dialogue. And as you may recall, that over past days, we have heard a wide range of perspectives on the, including the dramatic shifts that is taking place in the US politics and its implication for the global leadership. And the recurring question has been whether we are witnessing the fundamental transformation of the world order with the rise of emerging economies and also the expanding influence of the BRICS Plus, for example, in reshaping global governance. And this discussion this morning remains to be the central to the panel, and where we will explore how the power is being redistributed in the international system and how the world can address the growing mismatch between the power and the system. And I believe this is the fundamental, I think, the policy question that we have, and whether the traditional allies and partnerships can evolve in this multipolarizing world. And I once wrote the controversial article in the Japan Times titled, "The United States is Unprepared for a Multipolar World." And I think that the value of participating in the Raisina dialogue is to understand how the world is multipolarizing and how the world requires fair representation, and that is happening from the voices of all of you. So, but if you go to the Washington, D.C., for example, there's a little debate over how the U.S. is adapting itself in emerging dynamics, not in the politics, think tanks, and even in academia. Because in my understanding, the United States is unprepared for the multi-polarizing world, but it does not mean that the rest of us are prepared for the leadership role that seems to be absent. So we are honored to have distinguished panel experts from diverse regional perspectives, and this is going to be try to be as conversational as possible. And so I'll direct the specific questions to the panelists and encourage a close panel engagement as well. And I'd like to start by asking Alexander, who is the president of the Primakov National Research Institute and who has been the forefront of analyzing Russia's geopolitical strategy and security policies. And if I may, with permission from all, I want to go slightly beyond the theme of panel in my first question, since President Putin and President Trump has just held the telephone conversation over the ceasefire in Ukraine. That happened a few hours ago. So I don't want to miss this, the first take from Alexander and potentially from the fellow panelists, so that White House has just described as the first step in the movement to peace with an agreement to pause the strike on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And however, it seems to be there was no indication that Moscow had shifted its broader demands. And is this the tactical de-escalation on Moscow's term, or do you see any realistic path towards more comprehensive settlement? Alexander.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate ORF for having me here. Answering your question, I believe that that was a rather important event. 2 months ago, we could not dream about that. Only 2 months ago, the new president took the office. And the conversation lasts longer than our panel is going to be today. So the main outcome is, you said already, that it's partial ceasefire on energy and infrastructure. It's launching the technical negotiations about ceasefire on the Black Sea. There were some ideas regarding non-proliferation of the strategic weaponry, and Putin pronounced the key condition for the ceasefire. It's canceling of the military and intel support of Ukraine. So I guess it's quite enough for 90 minutes of conversation.
Right. According to the report, I think President Putin has reiterated his basic stance he has retained for quite some time, which involves the NATO renunciation, territorial concessions, and the withdrawal of the Western military support over Ukraine. And given the Kiev's strong opposition to these terms that we have heard from the foreign minister yesterday, Alexander, do you think that is there any room for diplomatic middle ground, or are we looking at the prolonged impasse from the conversation that took place?
I guess yes, and this is what the part of the agreement between two presidents, that the peace process would continue. It couldn't happen overnight because there are too many problems, but it would continue. It's clear the promise of the two presidents.
Great. So before getting into the main subject, I would also like to get the viewpoint from Paolo on how was your take on the telephone conversation.
So far, so good. I mean, nobody would have expected to the end of the war in this long conversation. Nobody would have expected Trump to turn down the phone and send Putin out of the Oval Office. They were on the phone, not in the Oval Office, but nobody would expect that. So they kept the door open. There is a minimal concession on Putin's side, but it's clear they don't want to close the door, and so we should expect, as said, longer negotiation. In Europe, we are definitely in favor of a dialogue. We have concern on the output of the dialogue. So far, there is no output, so we are happy.
Great. So definitely we want to come back to this issue. If you have any question during the Q&A, please take a maximum advantage of this. But I'd like to bring back to the original theme, which we are trying to spend more time on. And I like to, of course, I'll come back to Alexander on the original question as well. But I would like to start by asking Dr. Alkebi from the UAE. And I believe that the UAE and the Gulf countries have played, I would say, the masterclass in strategic hedging and balancing the U.S. security guarantees while engaging China and Russia into the field in Arab states. But given the growing unpredictability of U.S. policy that we have talked in past few days, and do you see that Gulf permanently shifting away from the U.S. Engagements, or you try to recalibrate its own relationship with the United States? What has been your take in how the UAE and the region try to deal with the new U.S. presidency and emerging kind of dynamics that will be taking place?
Good morning, everybody. I think Trump is a challenge for the whole world, okay? Maybe it's opportunity only for Russia. But maybe the Gulf is the least whom they have that kind of challenge with Trump, because the issue of hedging between China and US, it was before Trump. And it's not about hedging, but if I would say that in terms of technology, maybe this is the main issue for the American, that not to expose their technology to Chinese companies. Look, I mean, if you are a one who is going to buy the same software or whatever, where the American is giving you $100,000 and the Chinese giving you 100. So where you will take, right? It's about that, although also something else. The West, it's not only the American, they don't share the know-how. Well, the Chinese, they share the know-how. But because the Gulfs are, traditionally, they are American allies, all their system is American, they don't have that big space to maneuver. They are hedging, right? So economically, they are with China, that relation, but now they are coming back in terms of AI to US. The Trump challenge in what, I would say? That Trump is asking money. And he's putting pressure, and we have seen that he took $500 billion from the Saudi and he offered them that they can host the mediation between American and Russian, between Ukrainian and American. It's not about this also. Now there is US unilateralism and violating of the global orders, norms, and values. It means the whole world, mainly the global south, should come as alliance. We have BRICS, we should have others. I'm talking about reforming the UN, the IMF. This came after World War II, whereas there is superiority for the major powers, mainly US, to have a veto and everything they don't like. Now, there is India coming. This is emerging powers, India, Brazil, other Asian countries, Indonesia, Africa as well. They should be having representative in that institution. So you need to again look to the global order, which should reflect the justice between all the nations in the world.
Great. Thank you very much. If I may have a follow-up questions. It's quite a complexity that has been taking place in the Middle East over that you do have a regional cooperation mechanisms like OPEC, GCC cooperation mechanisms, but at the same time, it was during the first Trump administration that the Abraham Accord has been formulated. There's attempts to have the bunch of normalization talks, inclusive of Israel, into being in place. At the same time, you mentioned about the region represent more in the global governance. Probably that includes G20, BRICS. So many enmeshments of the different initiatives also, overshadowing the region. How do you see those kind of prospects of what really is the mainstream of the regional integration mechanism or the representation in the world system, which do you think is a preferable condition for the region?
Look, now I can see the global south gathering, and they are trying. And BRICS, I mean, G7, they should make G20 also, okay? Because humiliating the global south, it is not seeing that there is realities, new facts on the ground, that this is, India can be a global power. You cannot neglect that fact. So also GCC Council, okay, coming together. I think that kind of coalition, can face the Trump unilateralism. And there is other issue I want to mention here, that the annexation, the concept of annexation for Greenland or renaming places, this is emboldened those whom they have the same Trump mentality, which is Netanyahu. Okay, and this is very dangerous for the global order. That it means anybody can annex or can. We have a new colonialism or imperialism in the world, and this is shaking the stability in the global order and the trust of other global South in that the global order.
Thank you. I'll definitely get back to the point that you have laid out. But I turn to you, Karim. He's the executive president of the Policy Center for the New South, and he's been leading voice of the Africa's economic trajectory and the global governance reforms. And as you all may recall, that according to all the projection studies in 2030, 40s, and 50s, definitely we are going to see that Africa is the power center of the economic growth in the decades to come. Again, but even during the 1970s and 80s, 90s, the Africa has developed its own regional cooperation mechanism by itself. The role played by AU, and also if you look at the Western Africa, the ECOWAS has played the huge roles in political coordination, even in the conflict resolution mechanisms, that the systemizing of the African coordination mechanism is quite remarkable in a sense. And I wonder that the future trajectory of Africa in, something beyond the African continent, how much that Africa can really play its role in the provision of the public goods to others. And I wonder what's your viewpoint on this?
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I think it's too early to answer your question. Nobody wants to create public goods those days. There's no reasons. We need to go through a period of adjustment, and this is the period we're going through. We're not seeing the world with the same glasses. I think everybody here could sort of take 2 minutes and think of how was it before. And I think because of the current sort of dynamics, we tend to have a romantic view of what was the so-called rule-based order over the past 50 years. We didn't live this period the same. Japan and Morocco, Congo and Italy, etc. I don't think people tend to forget the consequences of foreign interventions in Africa or in the Middle East. Tend to forget, interventions in domestic political systems in many countries. So I think first of all, we need to try to see things, put ourselves in others' positions. And this is the painful process we're going through. It is a painful process. It has to do with psychological dimensions. And misunderstandings are coming from that. We were not surprised at the vote at the UN on Ukraine, the first vote. I was astonished to see my European friends surprised. We were absolutely not surprised. It was a message, a cheap way to send a message. And it was not received the same way, So I think that's, there's one dimension that is important, is that there are some countries that are gaining from, what is ongoing now. We don't know what's the end point, and I think it was Sanjoy Joshi point at the introduction of this seminar. This is dynamics which sets, back and forth, and So the strategic value of some countries have increased. The thing is that advanced economies who have been benefiting mostly for this rule-based order, although we were some free riders as well, but we pay, we paid the price too. Who are those countries? Take 2 minutes and list them. I think for advanced economies, Europeans are clearly the losers in a way for the time being. Let us see. So my take, from the continent is that countries should focus on if they can, on their internal politics. It is essential in the more risky world, in this adjustment period, to have strong internal fronts, particularly because populations are asking for a lot from governments. States are under pressure to deliver protection, to deliver quality education and health services, to help manage the demographic transition where it is relevant, as to the consequences of climate change. And there's a long list. And also the defense spending and increasing. The scars of managing the previous crisis are in the fiscal account of most countries. So it's a tough period. It's complex policy making. And I think we can help as think tankers, as academics. We're not commentator of news anchors. That's otherwise we won't be very useful. So I think, and I salute Indians' initiatives with this Raisina dialogue. To the main benefit of such a gathering is really to understand each other. So how do you see the world from Japan, from the Emirates, from India, from Italy, from Russia, to understand each other's? But we're not echo chambers of the daily sort of news flows. I don't think that would be very useful. And you'll find in Africa wisdom and the capacity to discuss and to engage. I think it is essential. And that you mentioned the institutions, they're not perfect, but Africans are proud of those institutions and they are investing in them. They have many flaws, but the intention is there. And I think it is essential, useful to engage with the rest of the world. So I see Africa as being open to engage with the rest of the world, to go through this adjustment period and find some sort of equilibria, in the medium term.
Well, thank you very much, Karim, especially for the reminder of the value of the Raisina dialogues, of the cross-representing of the various point of view from the world. And I move on to the Manjit, obviously they're representing India, think tank, academic worlds, but I participating in this Raisina dialogues and dealing with this turbulent worlds, and there has been quite a kind of stark difference between how much of the distance and interdependence that you have with the United States. For example, Europe has a deep shock, and also so as Japan, because basically we are one of the major ally in the United States. On those conditions, whoever become the president, the diplomatic choice that those major allies that have will be very, very limited to think about the plan B and plan C in adapting itself in the new political configuration in the United States. But seems to be India as a non-allied traditions and the promotion of the strategic autonomy as a major concept for a long time. I found that there has been the significant portion of the confidence in India in navigating this, the lot of shocks that has been taking place. And I wonder how confident you are in looking at this world, positioning India into this, and what is the uniqueness of India in changing these dynamics?
Thank you, Ken, and thank you all for being here so early in the morning. You know, this year is the 70th year of the Bandung Conference, the non-aligned movement. And Julia here is in the audience, and she's been studying this. It's a very, very important time because we need to look again at the non-aligned world, which was really a global South movement in 1955, and look at its relevance for today. Really, things have not changed because we are still non-aligned. But the Western world has changed. It has gone from being the writer of rules to, you know, we are no longer the taker of rules. We are making the new rules. And I think that, in fact, the West has understood that it has certain limitations because the world has changed. All the things that we, over the years that the West has been saying the world must step up, we must all become equal, everybody must be developed, that has come to pass. And for India particularly, because of our digital and our virtual infrastructure, we haven't had, you know, the beautiful gardens of Europe, but we certainly have beautiful virtual infrastructure. And we've been able to overcome that. We are 1.4 billion and we are not China. So that is starting to happen. But this is very important because when India solves problems, other countries and continents like Africa and Southeast Asia and Latin America, these are replicable models in these countries. And I find that, as he says with Africa, it is very important for countries like India when we start creating new supply chains, that we should start thinking about how do we bring the rest of the global South into those supply chains. So Morocco has been very smart about taking our digital public goods, and I think that is working very well. That effect of how well it's doing in Morocco and Rwanda, these are things that really should be encouraged by all. Unfortunately, what's happened, even in the virtual space, the world has kind of become divided, right? You've got China, which is run by the state, its infrastructure. The United States is totally privatized. We are somewhere in between, right? And this is a very good model. So I feel that India plays a very significant role. The non-aligned movement is really maybe a multi-aligned movement. And it's good for the world to understand it is not necessary now for the G7, which now still talks about alliances. The rest of the world is talking about partnerships. That's much more flexible. And therefore, coming back to what you said about the role of the Middle East in being an interlocutor for the West, when the West has been a mediator, it has done the carrot and stick. That has not worked now. When West Asia when Saudi Arabia and the UAE becomes a mediator, it is just culturally a little more sensitive. And so the mediation, it's more flexible, it's newer, it's more flexible, and so the mediation has cultural sensitivities. It works, and it should not be dismissed. When the African delegation went to Russia and Ukraine to try and mediate, they were kind of dismissed by I felt, was a very arrogant West. They should never forget that Africa has lots of disputes. They mediate with each other very well. And you're right, it has a proud tradition and should be proud. They must be taken seriously because they do have something to offer in this new world.
Excellent. Some says that as India has the largest population in the world, and if India goes to like a BRICS world, you know, authoritarianisms and how like a non-Western world as a major identity, that really decides the future of the world system. But India, as you mentioned, plays mediator roles of the embracing the different values and system coexisting in the world. And that is also creating the bridging roles. And everybody mentioned that it is the casting vote, you know, nation for the whole world order. And it's again, it's an important reminder that how you can really navigate the future of the order with this important nation as directions is taking place. But coming to Paulo, and I really wonder how can transatlantic alliances evolve to stay relevant in this multipolar world? And is there any real appetite within EU to integrate the aspiration of the global South, or Europe more focused on its internal cohesion? What is your take?
Thanks. You started saying we are witnessing a fundamental transformation. But then my friend Karim said, wait, it's too early. Not meaning too early the session at 7 o'clock, but too early that we are discussing that something which is developing, evolving. Trump is at the White House since 60 days, and we are elaborating the new word since then. So, and we are not TV anchor, as he said. So let me exchange with you a few comments on what is emerging after these 60 days and the 2 years of the Ukrainian war as well. And I will take a different view on the short term and the medium term. The short term is the TV anchor, the medium term is, long term is our role as think tank. Europe. In the short term, Europe is losing economically, but gaining politically. Losing economically because first it started with the new prices of the energy after the war and all what's connected to that. We are losing economically because we are clearly moving from the traditional European welfare to a new economy which is more warfare. And this is completely different. We need money for that. But we are gaining politically. I think you have been attending several sessions during these days. And I'm sure you have been attending several sessions in your life. And what is usually on stage when there is a conference like this is that you have the Swedish position, the German position, the French position, the Italian position, 27 positions on stage. You may have noticed in this conference that apart from 2 countries which are actually a little bit lost in transition in Europe, all the other representatives from European countries kept saying we in Europe, we the European. And this is completely new. And that means that what happened with Putin, what may happen with Trump, made us realize that we have to change. That there is no more time for big words, big conference, the new constitution. We need big action, and big actions are happening. I mean, deciding, as we are deciding, in 3 weeks' time, to eventually move into arming Europe is something which would have been unthinkable a few months ago. And this has been, you know the joke, the Italian, the German, the French, we have a lot of jokes in Europe. And this has been driven by a leader of a country which is no more there, UK, together with the leader which will be no more there, Macron, and the leader which is not yet there, Merz, the German Chancellor. These 3 people paved the way to something which is a European rearmament, not rearmament, which is something absolutely new. What about the medium and long term? In the medium and long term, we may gain economically and lose politically. We have to be very honest. Gain economically because investing this huge amount of money, the European one, Germany yesterday decided to cancel the debt brake, and other investment will be needed to innovate Europe. This investment may, in the medium term, improve growth prospect for Europe and reduce technological gap. Reduce, not eliminate. But politically it's a little bit riskier because there is strong cohesion right now in having more Europe. But everything we will do on rearming Europe, in spending money on this new activity, which will prevent us to support our traditional welfare, may be used by political parties which are skeptical on Europe in the next months to go against Europe. And they will be supported by Elon Musk and others in the States. So it's the same grouping, which within all countries may in the future work on jeopardizing the incredible miracle that we have done in the last 2 weeks, in spite of being not knowing what will happen soon. So the scenario is incredibly new, and you asked me how this new scenario will have Europe trying to incorporate the Global South. I mean, also this is evolving. If you ask me, will we get any change in the financial institution to incorporate the Global South? My answer is probably no. There is, as Ebtesan mentioned, there is an American veto there, so there are no. But if you ask me, for example, if there will be more interesting cooperation in trade between Europe and the Global South, my answer would be yes. Clearly, there is a new approach in looking at relationship with the Philippines, Thailand, India, and Mercosur, and Europe will utilize his free-riding approach after being a little bit left aside by the traditional allies to do that. So in that sense, I would see there are opportunities, great opportunities. On the financial institution, I would not be. On the UN, it's a never-ending story. We know that that's very difficult. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for those great elaboration. And I like to go back to Alexander. Thank you for your patience. As you may all know, that Alexander has been long analyzed the structural shift in the global power. Russia has positioned itself in a key player in this multipolarizing world. And I'd like to know your current viewpoint about how does Moscow see the evolution of this multipolarizing global order? What is the direction of Russia in incorporating those global trends? And if you could share with us, and especially how United States Trump administration tried to negotiate with Russia on the particular issue of Ukraine as a short, but I think it is go beyond that, and that I think it will include that notion of how the future of the, for example, arms control order might take place, how those kind of major power can coexist with each other. With all these in mind, I'd like to know your viewpoint on this.
Thank you. Let me start with some comments about presentation of the previous speakers. My take is that the new role of the Gulf states is an important part of the new global order. I believe that Gulf states today completely substituted Switzerland as a neutral place for negotiations, for financial deals, for trade, commerce, and so on and so forth. And this is an important part of the new world order. I believe that Trump's policy, his attempt to launch the exit strategy from Ukrainian conflict is not only opportunity for Russia, it's opportunity for Ukraine, it's opportunity for the Europe, and this is completely the new developments. We could not imagine about that 3 months ago. 3 months ago, we have listened about strategic defeat of Russia and continuous support till nobody knows how long. That was the previous administration position. It's completely different now. Look, I believe that Trump completely rejected this fallacy about the end of history. It was a fallacy, but very well traded error. And some events such as Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Ukraine It was the consequences of this theoretical mistake, very strong theoretical mistake. Regarding Europe, I guess that recent 30 years of being members of NATO, Europe became the completely strategic free rider without strategic understanding and responsibility. And as Paolo said, that yesterday they canceled this budget break in Germany, so it's new development also. The defense budget in Europe would grow, but at the same time we are facing the stagnating economy in Europe. What does it mean? It means some problems with the living standards. And what does it mean? It means some support for the ultra-right in Europe. And some from American administration, they openly support the ultra-right. It's also the new development. So my take is that the world order entered the stage of very dramatic and dynamic change. I could mention several contours of this dramatic change. I believe that it would be post-liberalism. It would be plurality of sovereign development models. It would be multipolarity. It would be modernization and erecting of the new international alliances and institutions. We already mentioned several of them. Another take is that for the recent centuries, the Europe was the natural kitchen where the next world order was prepared. It would not be anymore. It would be prepared in the larger Eurasia, of course, with United States participation. If we look at the economic statistics, during recent 20 years, China's GDP grown by 10 times, India's by 5 times, Indonesia by 4.5, Russia by 3 times. So according last year IMF database, the top 5 countries, according PPP by GDP, there is no one from the wonderful garden from Europe, only Russia is in top 5. So this is also a new development. And finally, I may tell you that, look, for recent 3 centuries, the Europe was the institutional and cultural role model for Russia, but not anymore, unfortunately. And this is the choice of Europeans. It's not the Russia's choice. Russia used to be the very organic, natural economic partner for Russia, not anymore. So this is also developments of the new world order.
Well, thank you very much. And we do have slightly over 8 minutes, and I'd like to open the floor for anybody who wish to engage in the dialogues. And let's take 2 or 3 questions in the road. Please send the microphone to the lady. Yes.
Hi, panel. My name is Anandan Singh. I wanted to ask the recent development in BRICS and the tension with the Western countries that they are against the development of BRICS. They think that is a disturbance of the international order. How Global South will rise with the countering the Western ideologies, development of BRICS, especially context of de-dollarization in this world.
Thank you. And let's take 2 more questions. Anybody?
One here.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'm Seiko. We are a private equity firm from New York. We actually finance a lot of governments worldwide. With the current situation wherein the global South is contributing to around 60% of the GDP, while the West is stagnating, EU is having only a growth of 1.2%, while US is carrying a debt of $34 trillion. And hardly IMF, World Bank, and other multilateral institutions, they have to be reformed a lot to support the global South. So should the emerging markets decide, to leverage their own assets and probably get finances from a firm like us and not look towards Europe and US anymore? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Good morning.
Yep.
One here, sir. Hello.
go ahead.
Thank you. Yagnya Kodaru here from the University of Munich. My question is to Mr. Alexander. at the start of the session, you said that Russia is willing to make diplomatic middle ground. My question to you, sir, is what would be this middle ground? What concessions is Russia willing to make in comparison to Russia's demands at the start of the war? Thank you.
Okay, I think there are two more questions.
Yes.
Let's do one by one.
Can I go? This is Kazem Sarjatpur from Iran, and I appreciate the panel. I have a question for the totality of the panel, and that is the personification of international politics. Now, too much weight on one person, Trump. And we also see Putin, and the argument is also Trump likes Putin himself and Xi to be the new concert of, let's say, global international politics. To what extent, especially the unpredictability of the personality of Trump, would be a threat to international peace and security, regardless of all deals that he makes? He is very unpredictable. Is this unpredictability conducive to the, let's say, a situation in which we would have wars and conflicts more than deals? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So final question.
You know, Joe Biden gave a call for unity of NATO and to fight with Russia in Ukraine. Now, NATO was with Joe Biden. Trump comes to power and he begins a process of détente with Russia, but Europe does not seem to be with Trump right now. Rather, they are feeling aggrieved that without consulting Europe, Biden is directly talking to Putin. My question is, someday, maybe it will take a while, but finally a ceasefire agreement will take place and maybe a long peace agreement will also be signed. And after that, what will be the nature of relationship between this new Europe and Russia?
All right. Thank you very much for all thoughtful question. I think that on the first and second question on the BRICS expansion and global distribution of power and how the institution can really adapt themselves in the future, probably I'd like to ask Dr. Alkebi and Karim for those questions. Starting from Alkebi.
My country joined BRICS lately. Look, it is with the American pressure, okay? You also need to look for another alliances, okay? That the world is not only West, it's not only America. There are other power in the world, India, China, Russia, that can balance the reliance on US. Now, for UAE, if I can, this is an opportunity. It's not against the West, has been perceived by the West that this is against. It's opportunity to find for more corridors in other places in Asia and Africa, and as Anwar Gargash yesterday said, UAE is a logistical hub, and this is how its foreign policy also. It goes based on that, most of its foreign policy. So BRICS, I think now with the Trump unilateralism, push more members to join BRICS or other alliances. For Sajadpur, personal matter, wherever it is, okay? I will give you also an example for Iran. When Khatami came, and he was open to his neighbor, to the world, Iranian foreign policy was different. So every time, no matter how this is an institutional country, US, nobody thought that there will be a guy come and break the system and break the institution. So this is what shows that the whole world, when that global power, we all rely on it. This means the global world order is in danger. So it means this is a shaky moment that needs revisiting the global order from global south angle,
Yeah, 3 points to summarize. The first one is there is a paradox, which is it's a fragmented word, but it's, at the same time you have an explosion of demand and appetite for cooperation all around the world. So there's a paradoxical sort of dynamic there, which is interesting to note. With the human tendency to cooperate, I think, will prevail at some point. The second point, people, personalities matters. They do history, but at the same time, they're the symptom of structural and profound dynamics. So don't be mistaken. What we're seeing today has started a while ago, and I don't think you should put this, you know, on the account of personalities. I think there are deeper structural transformations and dynamics at play, and it's just the US don't have any more an interest for the status quo. That is it. I mean, you can explain it, and it's a wake-up call for Europe, and I think it's a good wake-up call. It's you know, it's creating dynamics, and I think we need to usher into a new equilibrium, and it is going to be painful to reach it, and we don't like it, human beings. You know, it was comfortable for Europe, but they thought it was comfortable for the rest of the world, which is not the case. This is what my first point. So it's also a reality check. So intense thinking is important, curiosity, modesty in this period. Let us be guarded against sort of you know, one-size-fits-all thinking. On the global south, let us be careful, if I may. This is revolution time, if you agree. This is a very quick way to say it. But we don't want to be seen as being reactionaries, okay? So that was the trap of the Democrats in the US. In fact, they were the reactionary and he was the revolutionary. So I think let's not fantasize and romanticize the past. We need to build something new, and let's be fresh in our mind to be able to have this new construction. I think the Global South is an interesting idea. It's a romance, but operationally, technically, there's so much diversity and heterogeneity, which is the case in all global alliances or associations or groupings in the world. So let us try to bring something new to the table. I believe in regional arrangement, and you know, Africa being a region, and here in the Pacific, and let's see where it will guide us.
Thank you. Alexander, a quick point on the diplomatic middle ground, and Karim mentioned about whether new equilibrium will emerge in Europe. What's your take on this?
Look, I forgot to answer your question about the arms control, and my take is that the Russia-American relations are much wider than Ukraine or Greenland, because next February the START expires, and we are facing multipolar nuclear world. And say 30 years ago, 95% warheads belonged to these two powers. Today, only 70%. Technological advances in conventional weaponry, cyber, AI, and so on and so forth. So it's complicated and very scaring and frightening issues. So I believe that it's early to make final predictions, but as I see it today, I believe there would be 4 major power centers in the globe. It would be China, Russia, United States, and India. I guess Europe someday would join this grouping, but not today. As Paul said, they try to speak one voice. It's not always an orchestra. So regarding Russian concessions, I don't know, because, you know, normally the Russia-US relations is the presidential level relations. The concessions is that we already canceled attack on the energy and the infrastructure object, that we launched this negotiation about the Black Sea. So it's a long way ahead, and There would be definitely concessions. What kind of them, I don't know. But first concession that we stop attack on this critical infrastructure.
Okay, Paolo, your response. Oh, please use it.
One question on what will relationship between Europe and Russia look like after the ceasefire or the peace. My short answer is it depends on the ceasefire and peace. If the ceasefire and peace are realistically a realistic mediation, I think there will be a realistic adaptation of Europe to a relationship with Russia. If it is a surrender, that will open up a big issue within Europe, and I would expect that not many countries would be ready to go back to business as usual.
Thank you. And Manjit, for your final remark.
Very quickly, to remind everybody that in fact the world is changing in a positive way, is the IMEC corridor, which is a partnership with India, the US, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and going on into Europe, Germany, Italy, and France. These are the new cooperations that we're going to see, and they are going to include both the global north and the global south.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for the time has already exceeded much, but I really appreciate the great contribution by the panelists and also excellent questions from the floor. So join me in thanking all the panelists, and a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. Please join us for our next session at Darbar. It's at 9 o'clock.